Welcome to DDL. I'm Justin. This is T. We're going to get into it.
Welcome to Wellspring Wednesdays. We have a fun show planned for you today. Front topic. Let me get the timer started. If I got to figure out what's going on.
I just watched the clock in the bottom.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It has to have a recording. Man, you're so smart. Alrighty, so let's swap over and pull open this one real quick.
There we go.
So here's Facebook. What I did, I don't have a whole heck of a lot of time in my daily life to peruse reels or Instagram posts, or I don't partake in TikTok personally. Do you?
No TikTok, no Instagram, barely pay attention to Facebook. I'm kind of tapped out on most social media.
It is interesting. It seems like men typically don't really interact too much with social media. It seems to be a lot more female oriented.
Well, it might be age group too. I'm wondering.
That's probably true.
Honestly, for me, it's just, I know Instagram, and I've heard it's cleaned up, but there was a lot of solicitation that I got, just straight up pornographic material got sent to me, DM'd.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh, and people are like, oh, well, you can turn off your DMs. Oh, or I could just not play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. So I've kind of tapped out on most social media because I don't see, oh, you son of a bee. Oh. Sorry.
You're good, man. You're good. You did warn him. I before we started, you did warn him.
Yeah. Sorry. Let me grab. Do we have a towel? No, it's a shirt. I don't want that sitting there.
Here, maybe that right there underneath the horse. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go. Is that all right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We'll get that washed up afterwards.
Yep. Apologies.
Hey, no apologize for, man. I loved it.
So yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just one of those things where, what are you gonna do? I don't know. The engagement, the trade-off, the time, the investment, it just never was really worth it for me with social media.
What I also, the negative spin that I would also put on social media, I mean, I think it's good to kind of see what's going on in your friends' lives and stuff like that. The trade-off on, though, is people curate their lives to make it look like they're better than they are.
Yeah,
and it sets unrealistic expectations for people.
Right.
So nonetheless, what I was trying to say is I don't have a lot of time to partake in perusing these things.
Right.
I happened to be traveling last Wednesday night. My flight got delayed. I was sitting in an airport bar drinking. Okay, not a lot of people around. Cool. I start perusing, and I come across this lady, and I thought she had some very interesting topics that she was approaching, and I thought that they would be really good to just kind of go and see if we agree, if we disagree, if we partially agree, if we partially disagree, whatever. And so we went ahead and chose 6 of them, and I guess let's just dive into it.
Sure.
So you want to read, or you want me to read this?
We could switch off.
Okay. I'll let you start.
Says, untouchable men that get the attention but don't act on it are superior. No woman wants to be with a man that every woman has access to.
So since you read it, you want me to start and give my take on it?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. I don't fully agree with this. I think one thing that a natural biological attraction trigger that women have is if a man can attract another woman, I think that is an attraction for the man to other women. Now, I do agree with the part where he doesn't act on it is superior. I think that does set it apart because men that are able to control themselves enhance that natural attraction trigger. So a little bit weird of a take on that one.
Well, I think that is what she's saying with that, though. They do get the attention, but they don't act on it. And then she goes on to say, no woman wants to be with a man that every woman has access. So if you don't act on it, like every woman...
Yeah, no, you're right. I was misreading that slightly.
Yeah.
Misinterpreting that. Yeah, so I guess I would fully agree with that statement.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, there's a difference between the being attracted to and acting on it. And so that's where it requires quite a bit of trust. And, there's old Chris Rock bits about it where, guys can avoid going after women, but can't say no. But, if you truly are a respectable man who values your relationship, I think you can say no. Now, it's not to say it's not difficult or that, hey, every guy that cheats, let's judge them harshly, because sometimes, when that attention is being thrown your way on a consistent basis, it's difficult. But like you were saying, you don't want to, no woman wants to be with a man who no other woman's attracted to. Yep. But at that same token, how often is a man really getting hit on a day-to-day basis, seriously hit on. Like the flirtation at the coffee shop, that's so you'll tip them,
Exactly.
There's a big difference. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's why for me, it's like for me to say, well, the Tiger Woods situation, for example, it's like, it's easy for me to go, oh, Tiger Woods, terrible person for what he did. But it's like Tiger Woods might be one of the most 15, 20 recognizable men on the planet. Yeah. So he's getting a lot more attention than I am. And so when I have to say no 5 times a year, it's a lot easier than him saying no 10 times a day.
Yes.
So anyway.
Yeah. No, I that is actually a really good breakdown. Because you bring up an interesting point that I didn't really even inject into this, which is men typically are not the ones that are approached. They're the ones doing the approaching.
Sure.
So you are right. You're adding a level of into this that actually makes it even more. So if you're just a normal man and you're getting hit on 5 times a year and you can't say no, you really don't have the intestinal fortitude. You don't have the emotional intelligence. You don't have that. Mm-hmm. You don't have that. Strength that would be attractive to a woman.
Right. And again, it's how much do you value the relationship that you're in?
Yeah.
Because if you value it, you shouldn't be getting caught off guard.
Yep.
By women coming on to you. It should be something that you're ready for and ready to defend. You're ready to defend your marriage, your relationship, your family, whatever it is. It's like, my family isn't worth throwing it away. So, and make up your mind so that when the woman comes to you, it's like, no, I've already thought this out. I think a lot of the problem for men is they don't think it out beforehand.
Yep.
And they don't think how much their wife or their girlfriend or their children matter to them.
Yep.
That way, when the first woman comes along and gives them attention, they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't prepare for this. And it's like not studying for a quiz. It's you have to prepare your heart in that sort of a way. And it's the same thing with like friends. I've had plenty of friends who have had quote unquote friends that end up getting with their ex-girlfriend or literally cheating with their ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, to engage in intercourse with me, the most polite way I can say it. But that's just it. I am not going to allow myself to be caught in a position where one of my friends' girlfriends or wives is coming to me in that sort of way, because I've already set up a barrier in my heart that says, you are not an attractive person to me, and it doesn't matter if you're gorgeous. You're not attractive because I've already set in my heart, you cannot have access to me. Mm-hmm. Because you're off limits, because you're my friend's wife. Mm-hmm. And because of that, nothing will ever happen. And unfortunately, too many men don't make that resolution beforehand, so that when their friend's wife comes on to them, oh no, it's you gotta prepare your heart and have principles before the advance happens. Otherwise, you're going to literally get caught with your pants down.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate on this a little bit. And don't take this to mean that I'm disagreeing with them. I actually 100% agree with them. I'm just playing devil's advocate, which is, do you think that is a failure of the man, or do you think it's the failure of the man to prepare, or the failure of the fact that he has never actually been in that situation where he's actually been approached? Because most men don't get approached, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you prepare for something that has never happened to you before?
Just mentally. That's where I'd say just be ready. Like as long as you get ready, or as long as you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
100% agree with you.
So
I guess I'm looking for a PSA to the men out there that that don't recognize that this could happen.
Right, and it could be for any reason. It might be because she finds you attractive. It might be because she's having a bad day and you made her laugh. Women are very emotional in the sense that if you make them feel good even for a moment, they might come on to you with a pickup line or something. It could even be she's in a toxic relationship and she just wants to cheat just to get back at him. There could be hundreds of reasons as to why a woman would give you attention that you've never gotten before. So that I think, yeah, definitely kind of with that, always prepare yourself. Always be ready for to defend your relationship. And, if you're single, don't let any girl just randomly come up to you and try to have her way. You should have principles and know what you want beforehand. And I just missed him.
Yep.
Doggone it.
So if you watch Monday's episode, you could see that we needed to go on the hunt.
I'm packing heat.
And he is now the hunter. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
And this one I get the read, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you started off.
All right.
When you are in a relationship, it means that no matter what you do, you need to consider your partner's feelings.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. When you're in a relationship, everything you do affects the person that you're with. And so how is this going to make them feel? And not paralysis by analysis. It's not like, oh shoot, every single action I do, but when you're doing anything significant, you should think of how it affects your partner, whether it's money, how you spend it, even if you have your own separate bank accounts. How is your spending money going to affect your partner? How you talk to your friends and family going to affect your partner? Because the ultimate goal, unless you're just playing around to play around, we're all kind of working toward building family and marriages, which is kind of the point of the entire podcast, is how do we successfully be men and fathers? And so with that, if you're building towards a successful relationship, going back to the biblical principle, the two unite to become one flesh. And so when you're looking for somebody that you want to be with long-term to marry, you two become one. Your problems become each other's. And so that's where I do kind of agree. Like, hey, it's not just you solo anymore. Like you have to be mindful of the things you do and how they impact your partner. Maybe they don't, but at least have that thought in your head, or just even the simple things. Like, hey, you know what? I'm swinging by. I could swing by and get her a taco from I know she loves tacos from Taco Bell, so I'm going to swing by and get her a taco just cause. It's little stuff like that where you're thinking about them, and I think being mindful of the other person in those little ways makes them go, oh wow. So anyway, what are your thoughts?
Interesting. So I'm going to read it again. When you are in a relationship, it means that no matter what you do, you need to consider your partner's feelings. Mm-hmm. This is easier said than done, I think.
Yeah.
100% easier said than done. Because something innocuous that you don't think is a big deal could potentially be a big deal. Mm-hmm. I kind of like how you said it's the little things. It's not everything you need to think about, but it should come across your mind like, hey, if I were to do X, would X have a positive or negative effect on my partner?
Right.
And sometimes it's a little hard to determine whether or not what rises to that level, right? Because, so I agree with it. I wish it was a lot easier to do. Yeah. Especially because there are differences between men and women and how we view things and how we communicate things.
Right.
So you may communicate what you truly think is, X, but that communication comes across in a negative manner or in a positive manner that you didn't actually mean to be positive. Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Yeah. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that it should be done. I just want to give a PSA that, you're not going to be perfect at it and do your best at it.
Well, and that's why I kind of came up with a positive example.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's a way you can consider your partner's feelings, but also in the negative sense of like, hey, I'm gonna text this girl. Well, how would you feel if she was texting a guy? And I think that goes back to, hey, let me do not just not do things like not cheat, but let me be proactive in like, how can I engage my partner and make them feel more involved, more love, more let them know that I'm thinking about them.
Yeah.
And our pastor, he actually was preaching on marriage this week, and he said something that was hilarious. He said, women, the way their brains work is very unique and interesting because they know that we love them somewhere deep down. But you kind of have to prove it to them again every single day over and over again because they have something in their brain that forgets. Like, in principle, they know he's still with me. He hasn't cheated on me. He does love me, but you have to remind them every day because there's this little microchip in women that resets at the beginning of each day. So you have to come home with flowers or tacos or, hey, how's your day? Just those things. I thought that was hilarious because
that's funny.
Yeah, a lot of the women in the congregation were nodding their head yes. So yeah,
that's funny. That's funny. All right, so let's swap over to the next one. Mm-hmm. Here it is.
3 simple rules of a relationship. Love needs action. Trust needs proof. Sorry needs change.
I actually really like this one.
Mm-hmm.
3 simple rules, but they are true. Love needs action. If you truly love someone, your actions show that you care about them. Mm-hmm. Show that you care. So like, whether that be communication, whether that be acts of love or acts of service or whatever, like learning their love language and fulfilling their love language, the love does need action, and that action actually speaks. So if you're not putting in the action, that tells people that the love actually isn't there. So I like it because it's a good indicator whether or not you should continue the relationship. Mm-hmm. But it also is a good call to action for yourself to show how you love them by putting in the actions to show the love. Mm-hmm. Trust needs proof. So I really like this one because you can say a lot of simple things. This kind of ties back into the action, right? If you want to say trust me, like you need to put trust in me. Well, you have to prove to me that you can be trusted, right? And if you can't prove to me, that tells me that you don't really love me because you're not putting that action in. It kind of ties together in my mind. And sorry needs change. And when I posted this, I actually put number 3 is the hardest because sorry does require change, but change is not as easy as people think it is. Mm-hmm. So it does go to the fact that if you cannot admit that you were wrong and say sorry, there's problem 1. You have to be able to admit that you were wrong and apologize for your actions. And then you need to actively work on changing because it ties back into love needs action. The problem with it is it's the hardest one to accomplish because people are set in their ways, and it's hard. Like if you have a pattern that you've always existed in, and it's hard to sometimes break that pattern. Like what is it? 21 days to break a habit, something like that. So, in my mind, that's kind of along the same lines. Is it's going to take 21 days of actively working on it to initiate that change. So,
well, I think ultimately a lot of this can be summed up with actions speak louder than words. I think that's kind of what all of this is getting at, and I think
I love that.
I think that the love needs action. I think love is action. Love is, the way I've heard it said from other pastors, is love is a verb.
Okay.
Love is something you do. It's not something you say. Because I can tell you I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you till I'm blue in the face. But if my actions don't match up with it, I don't love you.
Yeah.
No matter how often I profess or how passionately I say the words, if there are no actions that correspond with that, I'm just using you.
Okay.
And so literally the definition of love is action. The way that I treat you shows that I love you.
Yeah.
And I might not speak in your love language, but the way, like maybe your love language is an acts of service, but by me serving you, that shows you that I love you. What was the other? Oh, you skipped.
sorry.
You pulled off of it. Trust needs proof. I think that's kind of more. I give people trust starting out.
Okay.
If you give me a reason to not trust you, then from then on, trust might need more proof to go along with it.
Okay.
You start out with two things with me. You start out with my trust. You start out with my respect. You can lose both of those things.
Okay.
And it's very hard to get it back once it's been broken. And especially in relationships, because I have been cheated on before, it's like once you start down a particular path, I just go, you know what? I've seen this behavior before. And going back to, it's a developed habit. It's just the way that you are. And hey, that's fine for you, but I'm not going to be a part of it, because when I got cheated on, I ignored all the warning signs. I stop sign after stop sign after stop sign. I just kept blowing through it. And I knew deep down in my heart of hearts what was happening, but I didn't want to admit it because I invested time, I invested money, I invested energy. So with me, you get trust starting out. Once you've betrayed that, then yeah, it's going to take some follow through for you. And then finally, what was the last one? Sorry needs change. Yeah, I agree with that as well. And like you said, it is easier said than done, because like, let's say you have some sort of an addiction that negatively affects your relationship, whether it's smoking or drinking or whatever. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can actually mean it and be sorry in the moment, but the problem is if the behavior hasn't changed, well, then you're continuing in those same patterns. And so sometimes in that case, it's that's why counseling is out there. That's why
I was actually just going to mention that.
Church, all sorts of other venues are out there for you to kind of say, hey, look, I can't do this on my own. I need some help.
Yeah, to actively work on it, right?
Right. Because we all have shortcomings and things that we're set in.
And I know that typically men don't like to do counseling or to do therapy.
Right.
That is something usually shunned upon. Don't fall into that. We all have our areas that we need work on. And yes, it is admirable that you want to work on them yourselves, but if you're not seeing the changes that you want to see, go ahead and invest in yourself and talk to someone, right? It doesn't make you less of a man. Like,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's my PSA for this one.
It's good. It's good.
So, okay, let's swap over to this one. Oh, sorry, I thought I had it on here. Never discuss your partner's mistakes with your family and friends, because while you may find it in your heart to forgive, your family friends might not be as willing to let it go.
Yes, I agree. The reason that I agree with this one is when you try to get people involved in what's going on in your life, whether it's friendships or relationships, the things that you say about your friends and the people that you date, your family has your back 100%. So when you share with them how your friend betrayed you, how he did this to you, how he did that to you, they'll give them one. But after like 2 or 3, where you're talking about huge betrayals of your trust and you still continue to be friends with that person, they have now set in their mind that's a person who is against you, that is a person not worthy to be trusted, and they then end up resenting that person because of the stories that you've told. And again, I think that goes doubly in relationships. I think most of your problems should be kept to yourself or between you and a counselor. I think dragging your friends into your relationship problems does 2 things. Number 1, it makes you a bummer to be around. Nobody wants to hear about your problems all the time. Hey, if you need to bring them up every so often to air it out, fine. But if you're one of those people who's always airing out your dirty laundry to your friends don't like being around you. And if your friends have stopped returning your calls and stopped texting you and you don't know why, I guarantee you that's an unspoken reason as to why your friends have stopped calling you back and texting you. It's because they don't want to be brought into the drama. And the advice, again, from the pastor that I talked to, he gave a story. He said he and his wife had been married about 2 years. And he said the first year and a half, oh man, honeymoon. everything was perfect. Neither person could do anything wrong. And then they started having some real fights, in year 2. And he drove to get away from his wife. He was angry, and he called his dad. And he said, she does this and she does that, and here's what's wrong with her, and she's so mean, and blah, 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 blah. He said he went on for about 15 to 20 minutes just airing out every grievance he had with his wife. His father sits and listens, and he finally winds down and quits spewing things. And his dad says, are you done? He said, yeah. He says, okay, don't you ever talk about your wife that way to anybody ever again. I never want to hear anything like that come from your mouth. You should only be building up your wife around other people. You should only be speaking well of her in front of other people. And basically, it's like, it's okay if you have problems. It's okay to talk about those things, but be very careful of the intimate details of your relationships that you share with other people, and especially family members, because that's something for you two to communicate about. And if you're communicating about to everybody else, you're probably not communicating it to the person that matters most and the person who needs to change the most. And so I thought that advice was amazing, because it can lead to a lack of respect both ways. Mm-hmm. If you're a woman, if you are constantly tearing your man down in front of your children will not respect him. They will not obey him, and you're going to have bigger problems, not just in your relationship, but in the whole family dynamic, because you're undercutting his authority, you're undercutting his lead, and you're undercutting your love for him when you speak negatively about him. So yeah, I would agree with that pretty wholeheartedly.
I like that explanation, man. It was good. So I don't actually disagree with this either. Mm-hmm. It is hard not to talk about your relationship or to talk about your friends and stuff like that.
Sure.
That is definitely hard. It's the amount that you actually are willing to go. And it ties back to what your story was, is like, you should be trying to build it up. Sure, you might have complaints and you might be looking for advice in some things, but you should try to articulate that in a way that's not like demeaning to your partner or demeaning to your friends.
Absolutely.
So I don't have much to add, because I think you actually nailed everything pretty much on the head on that one, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and if I had one thing to add, it would be some of the biggest betrayals that you're going to have with a friend or a partner, you might want to keep those to yourself. Because those are the things that are going to really negatively inform other people's opinions against that person. So that's where I'd say, when it comes to what you say about other people, it's like, even though the big things may hurt, that's something for the two of you to work out, rather than something for you to air between you and your family. And and I know that's hard. But just before you share it with anybody else, consider how it would make you feel if they told you that if your mom told you that your father did that. Yeah. Would it change your opinion of him? And if it would, be very careful with who you share that with.
I would say there is a caveat, and I think you touched on it, which is if you need to talk with a third party like a counselor, I think that's the only time it's acceptable. Because you're doing it in the confines of the relationship, and you're doing it with a trusted third partner, but you're not doing it behind their back or anything like that.
Right, and also to caveat, I would also say if there's situations of abuse, get out.
100%.
Run.
100%.
Men or women, get out, get away from the situation as soon as possible. Involve authorities, involve whoever needs to be involved, so that way you have a trail of the abuse, because you want to be able to prove abuse, especially in a marriage relationship where you have a lot on the line there. And that's where I would say, if it's abuse, get away from the situation. Make sure that you're safe first and foremost. And in those situations, find one person or at the most two that you really trust, that you're really looking for advice here. Like, hey, this has become abusive. I need a way out. Yeah. And so that would be my caveat, because it definitely happens a lot more men towards women. So women, make sure that you're safe. But also, there's some men out there that get abused that don't really talk about it, because it's usually more with objects than anything else. But
Okay, let's go over here. This is yours.
Don't break up when things get rough or you begin losing feelings. That's when the real love starts. Anyone can love when everything is all right. The true character of a person shows when they stick around through all the chaos. Relationships and even marriages demand effort and work, not excuses.
This is 100. It's very easy, especially in this day and age that we live in, where we live in a throwaway society, where things get hard, you give in, you just stop. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Life is about sacrifice. And relationships are no different. It's about sacrifice. You sometimes have to sacrifice your immediate want for a long-term relationship. That does have to be done. And if you start to lose feelings, or if you start to, when things just get, and I want to, I don't want to put in the effort, I don't want to, then you really truly didn't really love that person. I think, because if you did truly love that person, you would be willing to deal with that negative feelings. You'd be willing to deal with those short-term sacrifices in order to reap that long-term happiness.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with this one. I think she's spot on with this. But again, it goes back to it. It's hard. It's a complicated thing because you're dealing with when things get rough and you have to deal with it. Life gets real. You the term adulting comes into play. Like I get that people want to live these happy lives that they see on social media, or that they think that they envision since childhood and whatnot. I get people want to do that, but I don't think they understand that the people that they think are the happiest have gone through some of the most terrible crap in their lives in order to get there.
Right. Yeah, there's no perfect relationship. There's no perfect person. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to communicate. You're going to have to go through rough spots. You're going to have to go through arguments. That's part of life. And to me, it's just Hollywood and the entire entertainment industry has done such a disservice to what real relationships look like, what real marriages look like, because it's all about the warm fuzzies. Oh, this person's perfect for me. I didn't even have to communicate with them, and they just knew everything to do, and it was just so natural. And no, that's not real life. No. You're going to have to communicate with somebody to tell them what you like, what you dislike. Nobody can just automatically read that. I'm sorry for those who love 50 Shades of Grey. That's not reality. And ultimately, it's and so many of the rom-coms and all that stuff, it's, well, I told you not to chase me, but I really wanted you to chase me. And like all of that stuff, it has built a culture that is, if you're not feeling it, walk away. Yeah. If you're not feeling love, you're no longer in love. And I think that's exactly where she's right there. When you begin to lose feelings, that's when real love starts. Because when you don't feel like it, is when you truly, the action. Back to love is action. When I don't feel like it, when you are annoying and I still show you love, that's where I really love you. I've heard plenty of marriages where the spouses say, I don't like you right now, but I love you.
Yes.
Like I don't want to look at your face for weeks. 4 weeks, literally, just like day after day for weeks. They are so annoyed with their partner. They don't want to look at them, but they continue to love them. Yep. And that's one of those things where, growing up as a hopeless romantic really just perverted my view on what love and marriage and relationships should be. And we still see it, not just in the movies, but we see it with Hollywood celebrities once the cameras are off. How often do you see people go, we still love each other, but we're just going to split up our family, and I'm going to marry this person, and they're going to marry this person, and we still love each other, and we still love our kids, but we're just going to have other people who also have their own kids. And so now we've got four broken up marriages, two reassembled families, and we all still love each other. It's like, no, you don't, because if you loved each other, you would have fought for it. You would have tried to make it work. Again, the exception is the abuse cases. But other than that, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to work at it. And you know what? Your children don't get to walk away. Your children don't get to walk away from you.
Yep.
And so if they don't have, that's why children are so confused by divorce. They're like, we're one unit. We're in this together. And then when mom and dad leave, they go, well, what does family even mean at that point? Yeah. You throw a child's mind in turmoil. And look, no judgment to people who have been divorced, because there are situations where you have tried everything and it just doesn't work. I get that. That's part of life. I understand that. But let's make sure we're doing everything that we can as far as it depends on us. Like, hey, I've exhausted every possibility to try to make this work. And your kids, even if you're divorced, they will see that. They will go, you know what? My parents got divorced, but I saw dad try everything he could do to make it work. Mom just didn't want to stay in the relationship, or vice versa for you ladies out there. I think if more people who were married fought to keep the relationship, I think we would see the divorce rate plummet.
Do you think that there is ever a reason for a divorce?
Yes.
Would cheating be on that list?
Yeah. I think biblically, Jesus gives that out. I think biblically we also see abuse is a way out. And then another biblical example is what we see when in, I think it's 1 Corinthians 7, it says, if you are a believer and your spouse is an unbeliever and they are willing to leave, you can let them go. And it actually advises you to let them go, because you're going to have so many foundational differences that the marriage probably won't work anyway. And so yeah.
No, I get that. I was just curious if there is any in your mind, if there's any, because in my mind, abuse, cheating, those two are about really the only two that really should break up a marriage.
Right.
Abuse, obvious reasons. Cheating's obvious reasons.
Well, and again, belief systems, I think is huge too. And that's where the Bible also says, hey, if your spouse is willing to stay with you, if you've changed your beliefs, then love them and show them the love of Christ, and maybe you can win them over as well. But it goes back to the Chris Rock. You can't, he said, you can't have one person who's going to church and the other person a crackhead. It ain't going to work out. You need two crackheads, because it's like, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go to church. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go smoke rocks. It won't work. You know, you got to have some common ground there.
Fair. Okay, let's move over to the last one. Yeah. A woman with less friends makes a good wife, and a man with less friends makes a good father and responsible husband. This one is an interesting take. So let's go ahead and let's hear your thoughts.
This is one of the few that I'm going to disagree. I don't think that that's the case. I think the more friends a person has actually speaks to who they are. Because if you have, look, and no shade to anybody who's an introvert or has trouble getting out there and socializing or making friends, but generally, I find friendships are very important. They're not, obviously not as important as the husband-wife relationship or the father-child relationship there. But, man, I got to tell you, the amount of friends that I have through church, through other avenues, throughout my life that I've built up, who I can call when I need something, man, has helped me out of a lot of situations. Quick example, car accident. I had, and I don't know if I shared this last week, but there was a couple from the church and another separate guy from the church who both said, hey, if you need to borrow a car for an undisclosed amount of time, you let me know if your insurance won't cover it. And sure enough, like, hey, that helped me out of a big jam. And so there might be things within your family that go wrong that you need help from an outside party. And that's where I think women shouldn't have too many guy friends, and I think men shouldn't have too many female friends. But I think having an enrichment of true close friends, I think that really adds to life. And I think it's something that you can enjoy with your wife, with your children. Hey, we're going over to this person's house. There's going to be 4 families there. We're all going to have a great time. We're going to feast. We're going to laugh. We're going to, I don't know. I think friends aren't the end all be all to life, but they're kind of like that that what do you call it? That unspoken seasoned ingredient in the sauce. When you're making a spaghetti, it's that cherry on top that just makes life worth it. Where you're like, hey, we're in our family, we're close together, but we also have other people that we love that we consider friends and family. And so that's where I go, no, not necessarily. Now, maybe she might be saying don't spread yourself too thin because you only have so much time, and I get that. But other than that, if that's not what she's getting at, I kind of disagree wholeheartedly with this. What are your thoughts?
So initially when I read this, I thought that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you were having less friends, then you're more likely to invest in your relationship.
Sure.
But then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, that actually doesn't make much sense at all. Because while I agree that the relationship should be the priority, it can't be the only thing in your lives, right?
Exactly.
So this one actually made me think quite a bit, because I can see some of the positives in what she's trying to say, but I don't necessarily think it ultimately is a positive. Kind of like what you were saying. I think there are caveats to this, and I think you nailed on one of them, which is if you're, as a man, have a lot of female friends and you're dedicating a lot of time to your female friends, I think that is a disrespectful act to your partner, and vice versa. If you're a female and you're having a lot of male friends, and you're investing a lot of time in your male friends, it's disrespectful to your relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there is a caveat to this. That doesn't mean less friends. That just means like, who are you friends with, and kind of catering to your partner's needs as well, a little bit. Well, it goes back to it ties back into like your actions. You should take your partner's feelings into consideration with your actions, right?
Right.
The other thing, there's more to this actually as well, which is let's say you have a lot of friends and you do not want to introduce your partner to your friends. Like you were saying, like, oh, we're going to go over here and have a barbecue or whatever. Yeah. Like if you're unwilling to bring your significant other around, like that in and of itself is an issue as well, because yes, you have individual lives, you have individual friends. However, you should be comfortable enough with your partner and your friends in order to let them at least interact. And if you can't do that, then I think that's an issue, which means you should have less of those types of friends.
Right. And
so, let me finish off here. Having friends with the opposite sex, I don't think is bad. Again, I think it's the amount and whether, and then tying in with whether or not you're introducing your friends to your significant other is also a big deal. But I also think that you kind of hit it on the head again, which is you can't, man, woman, it doesn't matter. You cannot be alone and rely strictly on your partner. You do need to have a friend base.
Right.
Because there are some things you're going to be more comfortable talking about, like work issue.
Right.
Like if I'm having a work issue, it might be easier to talk to you than it would be to talk to my significant other.
Right.
Right. That's not a disrespectful act. That's just I don't need to burden you with that.
Right.
Let me get advice from elsewhere.
Sure.
Right. So there is a huge benefit from having friends. And then, like you said, also being able to have other people to help rely on if things are going bad.
Yeah. And I think being able to confide in friends too, is as far as like, hey, again, going back to not disrespecting the boundary of your partner, but hey, I've got personal problems. Maybe I struggle with anger or pornography or something, and it's embarrassing, and I don't necessarily I can't talk to my partner the same way about it that I can other guys, because a lot of other guys kind of understand the draw of something like pornography, or a lot of guys understand anger and rage, whereas most of the time ladies, those are two areas they can struggle in, but generally they don't. And so having that ear to talk to, but also, man, sometimes you just need a night away from each other.
Yeah.
Just to get some distance, because look, man, I said it before, I don't want to deal with myself every single day, but I have to. I don't have a choice. I'm so annoying. I don't want to deal with me 24/7. Unfortunately, here I am. Yeah. So I again, it goes back to I just get astounded when I look at somebody who could put up with me for the rest of my life. So sometimes giving that person a break from you is the best thing you can do for you and for your relationship.
100%.
And, sometimes the ladies don't want to go out to the gun range. If you do have a lady who does, God bless you. Sometimes they don't want to go bowling, that sometimes you just want to do a dude's night.
Yep, 100%. So, yeah. All right, well, we're at 45. I like this idea, breaking it down and kind of giving our perspectives, and it's love it. So tune in. Maybe we'll do more of these. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Till next time.